Chapter 15. An Execrate Encounter. The first thing Kai was aware of was the sound of dripping water. Then he felt a cold wind rushing over his skin. Slowly, forcing himself back to consciousness, he opened his eyes to the dim light of a damp cave, illuminated by a few floating candles. Kai was sitting on the frigid cave floor against a stalagmite. As he tried to sit up, he panicked. His arms were bound behind his back around the stalagmite. He immediately tried to pull against his bindings, but the metal shackles that linked his hands behind his back could not be broken. Beneath him, Kai could see a sigil drawn in what appeared to be blood painted on the cave floor. It reminded him of the sigil that had been on the lid of the stone coffin.
That's called a blood seal.
Kai looked up to see Tora and Balthier nonchalantly standing against the cave wall, observing Kai like he was an insect ensnared in a web. They were both wearing black acolyte robes, the same ones Kai had seen on the elves in Arden's tower. Kai's eyes narrowed. A glamour. These two had been the ones to break into Arden's tower. They had just made themselves look like elves. Tora grinned.
Blood seals are used to mask any living being, meaning even if someone scried for you, they would be unable to find you.
Kai glared back at them. He then closed his eyes and focused. Demora. But he was hit with a shock when he didn't fade. Balthier and Tora laughed in response.
Wouldn't be trying to teleport, would you?
Tora asked.
We know about your disappearing act.
He pointed to the shackles binding Kai's wrists.
They are enchanted. You won't be using magic.
Kai looked down to notice his amulet was missing as well. There was no way for him to call out.
Not as though a human like you could ever wield magic effectively anyway.
Kai snapped his head up to see a third figure approach him from the shadows. He narrowed his gaze in pure, seething hatred. Umbree, Kai growled, uttering his name much as you would a curse. Umbree was dressed in dark robes and seemed, unfortunately, no worse for wear since Kai's last encounter with him. The only difference was that Umbree now wielded a staff. It had a red glowing orb attached to the head, with the shaft carved out of onyx and a sharp silver point on the end. Kai wasn't sure where he had gotten the new staff, but he could sense a dark energy radiating from it. Umbree sneered at Kai's greeting.
You dare address me by an informal name, boy?
Well, I doubt you would prefer the other names I have for you. Kai's head forcibly snapped to the left as the handle of Umbree's staff struck the right side of his face. His vision was dazed, and his right cheek felt like fire. He wasn't sure if Umbree's strike had broken his jaw, but he tasted blood in his mouth.
I suggest you watch your tongue, human, or I will remove it.
Kai spit out a small amount of blood at Umbree's feet before replying, That would make this conversation rather short-lived. Umbree glared at him.
Where is it, boy?
Where is what? This time, it was the heel of the staff. Umbree lifted it like a spear and drove the hard, sharp metal end into Kai's left shoulder. Kai cried out as the point pierced through his flesh. The wave of pain that washed over him caused the world to spin. Kai had to swallow hard to suppress the bile rising in his throat. Warm blood from the wound on his shoulder trickled down his tunic.
I have very little patience, boy.
I wasn't aware you possessed any at all, Kai hissed through gritted teeth. Umbree responded by twisting the staff as Kai bit back a scream.
I will ask you again,
Umbree growled.
And before you respond with another smart-ass remark, allow me to remind you, I will beat you to death without batting an eye.
Umbree ripped the staff point from his shoulder with a final shout from Kai and grabbed him by the back of his hair. He forced Kai's gaze up as he bent down to his level, his eyes mere inches away, his foul breath invading his nostrils.
Where is the stone?
Umbree seethed.
I don't know,
Kai bit back. Umbree shoved his head down as he released Kai's hair, scoffing as he did so.
You expect me to believe that?
What makes you think differently? Arden hid it. I have no idea where. Umbree looked unconvinced.
The fool seems to trust you. I find it unlikely he would also not make the mistake of sharing the stone's location with you.
Kai could feel a swell of anger rising within him. It did not sit well with him to hear Umbree badmouth Arden. Umbree was the fool here, not him. Kai smiled sarcastically at Umbree.
You believe yourself above Lord Arden? I'm curious then why he doesn't sit here instead of me. One surefire way to find the stone is to ask him these very same questions, but I'm guessing there's a reason you won't face him, and I think we both know what that reason is.
Kai leaned forward and inspected Umbree's face with great interest, before adding with a smirk,
Could that be fear I see in your eyes?
That had done it. Umbree spun around and pointed a hand at Kai, shouting,
Fulgur Tila!
A blue bolt of lightning hit Kai, and he felt 1,000 searing daggers stabbing him. The pain robbed him of his thought, his breath. Every muscle protested in agony as his body convulsed and his eyes rolled back in his head. He would have screamed if he had the ability. The torment seemed to go on for what felt like eternity. Finally, Umbree suspended the spell. Kai's form slumped forward. His ragged breaths echoed inside the cave.
You don't learn, do you, boy?
Belthier noted dully.
I think he has lost his mind,
Tora added with a sickening smile. On the contrary, Kai was thinking quite clearly and following the only option available to him. He didn't want to die, but that choice was out of his hands. He didn't know if Arden even knew he was missing, or if he would be able to find him even if he did. The only choice that remained was to ensure Umbree did not get what he was looking for. Kai would not betray Arden or give Umbree the stone, even if it cost him his last breath. But he feared, given enough time, Umbree would break him. And that was a risk he couldn't take. The simplest way to avoid that was to incite Umbree, causing him to lose focus, to let his anger consume him. All it took was finding the right buttons. And after 9 years with the intolerable bastard, Kai knew exactly what buttons to press. Once he found his breath, Kai laughed weakly at Umbree.
Have I struck a nerve?
Umbree clasped the staff in both hands and shoved the shaft against Kai's throat, cutting off his air supply. His face was scarlet and his hands shook in fury. Kai was slipping into unconsciousness, a welcome reprieve.
You will tell me where the stone is, boy!
Umbree boomed, removing the staff from Kai's throat at the last second before darkness overtook him. Kai coughed and gasped, trying to speak.
Or what? You will kill me?
Umbree's demeanor shifted quite suddenly. The fury seemed to quell as he crouched to Kai's level, staring back with sincerity.
Oh no. No, you will die. That much is assured. I have dreamt of nothing else since you dared betray me. You have no control over your death. The only thing you have control over is how prolonged and painful it might be. If you tell me what I wish to know, I will show you mercy and put a quick end to your misery. But continue to defy me, and I swear you will pray for death long before I tire of your screams.
Kai knew Umbree meant every word, and he had no illusions about survival. His entire life he had feared Umbree's retribution, but now the once towering giant was just a small, cruel old man.
Well, what is your choice?
Kai didn't hesitate, leaning in closer to Umbree and disdainfully replying,
Go to hell.
Umbree merely chuckled.
I am a maester, boy. Hell is a realm of my making.
Umbree held his hand out toward Kai's forehead.
Allow me to demonstrate. Manus Incantari.
Like a sudden punch to the side of his head, Kai felt something invade his mind, rattling him. He tried desperately to block it, but it swiftly bypassed his defenses as the cave around him went dark. When Kai opened his eyes, he was lying on a straw mat on soft earth, with a hand-woven blanket over him. As he slowly sat up, he realized he was in a very familiar place. He lay in a wood-covered shack. There was a small fireplace made out of clay situated in the corner. The heat from the daylight desert air blasted through the cracks. He was back on Helia. Kai stood up, looking around the shack. Hand-carved furniture made from fallen trees was scattered around the domicile, each piece adorned with carefully stitched pillows. Memorabilia he recognized, but had long since forgotten, hung from the walls as he inspected every corner of the room from the depths of his memory. The door of the shack swung open, and a petite woman in her early 30s, with long black hair and deep brown eyes, came bustling in carrying a bundle of twigs. As soon as her eyes fell on Kai, he felt his heart actually stop for a moment. "Ah, you are up!" she exclaimed, depositing the bundle of twigs in the corner. "I feared you would sleep the day away, little cub." Kai was frozen, unable to take in air, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "Mother?" he asked in breathless disbelief. His mother turned to him and laughed. "Son?" she asked in return, as though his question was meant to be a game. "Come on, if you're awake, there are chores to be done. I collected kindling, but I could use help with chopping firewood." But Kai didn't move. He couldn't. She was here. She was standing right here in the shack that was his home, before everything. This was a dream, but it felt so real. How could it be? His mother turned to him again, her face contorted in confusion. "Are you all right?" she asked in concern. "You look pale." He wasn't all right. This felt wrong. But the longer he stood in this room, the more the nagging doubt at the back of his mind quieted, the more he felt like he was home. No, it was just a dream. He had to remember, it was just a dream. "You died," Kai stated, trying to remind himself of the truth. His mother stared back at him, confused. "So you had a nightmare?" Kai shook his head. "No, you died 5 years ago," Kai replied, trying to remember the truth, but it was slipping away the harder he tried to hold on to it, like sand through a sieve. "And you look the same. How do you look the same?" His mother approached him and gave him a compassionate smile. "It was just a dream, little cub. Don't let it bother you." Kai looked around the shack carefully. Had it just been a dream? He was having trouble remembering. Where was he before here? "Come on. Help me with the firewood, and I'll get lunch started. You will feel better after you eat." Kai nodded numbly. He felt foggy. His thoughts were clouded. But this seemed real. As Kai collected the wood axe from the wall, he dutifully stepped outside to begin chopping wood. Kai felt as though he was in a daze as he stood there, rhythmically chopping one wooden log after another. It was a task he recalled performing 1,000 times before, but now it felt out of place. But why? He was human. Mundane tasks were common in his life, but Kai felt as though he should be doing more. After some time, his mother stepped outside with him. She was hanging wash on a clothesline behind him when Kai heard her gasp. "Oh my gosh, look at this!" Kai turned to see she held an amazingly clear yellow gem. It was about the size of a fist and glowed slightly. Kai instantly felt a connection to the stone. It was important somehow. His mother pointed to the ground. "I found it here, beneath the clothesline. Do you know what it is?" Kai felt drawn to the stone, reaching his hand out for it. A warning was practically shouting in the back of Kai's mind, telling him this gem was dangerous. Kai retracted his hand and backed away. "I think you should leave it," he stated. He didn't know why, but he instinctively pulled away from it. His mother looked confused. "But we should return it to where it came from. Do you know how it got here?" "Don't tell her!" His thoughts were practically shouting at him, but Kai didn't know why. Why was this gem important? He didn't know anything about it. Did he? Somehow, he felt it was not only important to him, but someone he knew. Suddenly, the memory of a voice echoed through his thoughts. It was the voice of a man. Although he couldn't recall the name, the voice sounded so familiar to Kai. Some say that a ranger is the strongest of magi, but they are wrong. A ranger may hit like a hammer, but facing off against one, you'll fight with all you have. With a charmer, however, you won't fight. You won't want to.
Kai?
His mother asked as Kai stood frozen, shutting his eyes tight, desperately trying to hold on to the memory of the voice. They will get inside your head and show you the most beautiful things. Places you've longed to see, loved ones long since lost. They will paint you a wonderful world, an inviting world, and you will want to let your guard down. Want to let them in. But you can't let them in, because if you do, they will shatter your mind like a mirror, and you will never be able to put the pieces back together.
Kai, look at me,
his mother requested, but Kai didn't open his eyes. Instead, he sought help from the voice inside his head.
What do I do?
Destroy the dream, kid. Dispel the source of the illusion. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how much you don't want to, you have to. It's the only way to show the truth.
Kai?
Kai jumped slightly as he felt a hand touch his cheek. As he looked down at his mother, she smiled brightly back at him.
It's all right, she consoled him. I'm right here.
Kai felt a sharp stab in his chest. Warm tears spilled from his eyes and rolled down his cheek as he placed a hand over hers. He understood now what the voice meant.
But you're not,
Kai stated, his voice breaking. No matter how much I wish you were, no matter how much I want you to be, you're not here. And you haven't been for a long time. Kai slowly pulled her hand from his face and stepped away from her. He knew what he had to do. This is a dream, and I have to wake up. His mother searched his face, her brown eyes squinting in confusion. Kai was shaking like a leaf as he looked back at her. Her gaze felt like a dagger piercing him.
Kai?
I'm sorry, he whispered as his hand tightly gripped the wood axe he was holding. It happened in an instant. Kai shut his eyes and swung the axe. There was a scream, there was blood, and then just silence. When Kai opened his eyes, he expected the dream to be gone, but he was still there, standing in a blood-soaked nightmare.
Wake up!
He commanded himself, begging the picture to fade.
Wake up!
He repeated. His head was spinning now. He couldn't seem to wake. Kai stumbled back and slowly slid down the outside wall of the shack. It was a dream. It was just a dream. It had to be. Wake up! Kai was shaking uncontrollably, unable to breathe as he looked at the axe he still held in his hand. The blade glistened in the sun, inviting sweet relief from this living hell. Kai held the sharp point to his throat, pressing down in preparation to drag it across his neck. He was going to end this nightmare, one way or another.
Well,
a voice stated. Kai's eyes snapped up to see Umbree standing outside the shack with him. All of a sudden, his memories came rushing back as he realized he was in Umbree's illusion.
I see you murdered your own mother,
Umbree noted in frustration. The illusion around him began to fade.
I must say, you are a far more brutal bastard than I gave you credit for.
Kai bellowed and rushed toward the Goblin Maester. In that moment, it didn't matter they were inside his head. It didn't matter how long it took. Kai knew without a doubt he was going to kill Umbree. Oren and Ammon stood atop the Talira mountain ridge, overlooking the town of Liena. The shades had descended on the Iselia townsfolk, but the mages had been successful so far in keeping the shades at bay and civilian casualties to a minimum. Oren did take comfort in the fact that it had come at a cost to their ranks to do so, though not as much as Oren would have hoped. He sighed.
What on earth could be taking Umbree so long?
He noted to Ammon.
He relayed that he simply had to get the stone's location from a human. I would not have thought it to be such a lengthy task to accomplish.
Amon furrowed his brow. I told you the old goblin was not up to the task. If you allow me, master, I will drag the information from the human and put a quick end to this.
Orin shook his head. No, my friend. It is best we keep to the shadows this time. We are not yet ready for a fight with the Magi. Best we keep a low profile, till we are.
Orin looked back to the shades that were descending on the mages in madness, their fury unleashing devastating, bloody attacks on every soul that they crossed. Orin couldn't help but smile at the savagery of shades. They were delightfully terrifying creatures to behold.
We simply must have faith in Umbree to complete the task we have set out for him. We have set the stage. Nothing left to do but sit back and enjoy the show.
Kai awoke on the small sofa in the common area of Arden's tower. The snow was falling outside, and a roaring fire was warming the room. Arden was standing by the veranda doors, looking at Kai as though expecting an answer. "Did you hear me?" Arden inquired. Kai shook his head. He felt fuzzy, like he was still half asleep. I'm sorry, what?" Kai asked. Arden sighed. "I said, have you had any luck with the research on the creation stones?" Kai looked down to see he had a book clasped in his hands. He slowly remembered he had been reading it, but he must have dozed off. "Oh, sorry," he replied as he collected the book once more and started poring over it. As Kai began to inspect the pages, he found that it was difficult for him to concentrate on even a single word. His eyes were tired. His thoughts were muddled. His mind felt drained, like a sponge wrung dry. He couldn't seem to focus on anything. Maybe he was just tired. Kai stared at the page for the longest time, unable to take in any information. "I'm wondering if we chose a safe enough location to hide the windstone," Arden stated after a prolonged silence as he sat in his high-backed chair. "What do you think?" Kai looked back at Arden and blinked. The location of the windstone. Where did Arden put it? He knew the answer to that question, didn't he? But it had to stay safe. Kai had to help keep it safe. How did he do that? Kai placed his head in his hands. He couldn't think clearly. His thoughts were a mess. "I'm sorry. I think I'm just too tired to focus right now. I think I'll turn in for the evening." Arden sighed, his disappointment palpable. This seemed off. Arden didn't usually care if he took a break or not. "Very well. We will continue when you are rested." Kai nodded and began heading toward his bedroom. Good night, Arden." "Good night, boy." Kai froze mid-step, still as a statue. Boy? Arden didn't call him that. Arden never called him that. It was Kai, kid, occasionally smartass, but never boy. There was only one who referred to him as such, the one he hated more than anything. Kai's fists clenched into tight balls as he turned to face the thing called Arden. Arden cocked his head in confusion at Kai's stern gaze. "Something wrong, kid?" "Yes," Kai stated simply. "You." "Valara!" Kai shouted as he pointed to a fire poker resting by the hearth. In an instant, the tool flew up, zipping through the air like a spear and impaling the thing that was Arden through the head. The surprised look on Arden's face froze as silver blood ran down his head and his lifeless body hit the floor. Kai was unfazed, standing over the corpse completely unmoved. He knew this wasn't real. "Bit of advice, Umbree. Do not attempt to mimic Arden. You're a poor shadow at best." Instantly, the illusion around him began to fade, dissipating like smoke rising up from a burning log. Arden's body was replaced by a very angry Umbree, standing there fuming. Kai glared back at him. How many of these illusions had he been in now? Dozens by this point. He was having trouble keeping track. Each one designed to try and break him, and in each one, it became harder and harder to tell what was real and what wasn't.
Think you're clever, do you, boy?
More so than you, it would appear. Umbree's reply was a cold smile.
Took you longer this time to notice my illusion. In fact, it's been taking longer and longer each time.
Kai just glowered, remaining silent, but Umbree could see the unease creeping over his face. He began to slowly circle around where Kai stood like a vulture circling its prey.
Those walls of yours are cracking, boy. No matter how hard you try to keep them standing, they just keep falling down, one by one. Soon enough, there will no longer be a barrier to protect you from me.
Kai tried to hide his distress, but he knew that Umbree was right. His focus was already breaking. Reality was blurring. It was just a matter of time before Umbree had the information he was looking for. Kai was fighting back with all he had, but it was a fight he was losing. Instead of showing fear, though, Kai turned to Umbree with determination.
Are you trying to convince me or yourself?
Umbree seemed slightly surprised at the question.
It must be quite frustrating for you, a pathetic human putting up this much of a fight. I'm not the only one who's slipping, Umbree, and your mistakes are getting easier to spot.
Kai stepped right up to Umbree, inches away from his face as he seethed.
We'll see who breaks first.
Umbree glared back as he opened his mouth to respond. Suddenly, the whole room shook, almost knocking both Kai and Umbree off their feet. Kai could hear shouting from somewhere as Umbree turned toward the sound.
What the devil?
In an instant, the tower around Kai disappeared, and he found himself once again sitting on a cold cave floor. Black smoke enveloped everything around him, invading his nostrils, clogging his throat. His mind was having trouble focusing on the cacophony around him. Even in the dim light and clouds of smoke in the cave, he could see the flash of spells being exchanged and people shouting. A scream sounded like it came from Tora. Suddenly, a huge creature's silhouette lunged through the smoke. A second scream sounded like Balthier. Umbree immediately ran into the smoke after the shout, issuing a spell as he went. Kai leaned forward, coughing, trying desperately to catch his breath as the smoke invaded his lungs. An unknown hand suddenly touched his wrist, where the metal cuffs had him bound. He felt something hard clang against the metal, cutting through the links. The shackles broke. The strong grip grabbed hold of Kai's other arm, pulling him to his feet.
Demora!
Kai was hit by the floating sensation of teleporting before he found himself standing in another cave. The cavern was completely black, till the form standing on his right whispered,
Lyrela!
Saya's face was instantly illuminated as the ball of light she conjured filled the cavern. She rushed forward to the cave wall and began tracing a symbol in the rock. Kai turned to see Riley helping to hold him upright. He noticed small bits of blood around his mouth, as though he had bit into something or someone.
Wow, he looked pissed,
Riley noted to Saya.
Like, exceptionally pissed.
I'd say that's a fair assessment,
Saya replied as she continued tracing symbols.
So, you might want to hurry up with that cloaking spell there, little sis.
Yes, thank you, Riley. Your talent for stating the obvious never ceases to amaze me.
Kai couldn't understand what was happening. His head was pounding, making understanding anything difficult. How were they here? Why? They should be at Calum Vallis preparing for the attack. How did they know what had happened to him? And why did they come for him? No one should have been able to locate him, not with the blood seal Umbree had cast. Then, a sickening thought spread through Kai's mind. He hadn't been rescued at all. This was a trick by Umbree to coax him into letting his guard down so that he could invade his mind and gain control of the stone. This was still part of his game, and Kai was done playing. Saya finished the last symbol, standing up to observe her handiwork.
There. That should cover our tracks, for a while at least.
How long is a while?
Shorter than indefinite.
In a surge of adrenaline, Kai ripped himself from Riley's grasp and jumped to the back of the cavern.
Shalira!
Kai shouted. The stalactites hanging from the ceiling instantly broke into hundreds of tiny, sharp pieces. With a wave of his hand, Kai sent the shards hurtling toward the imposters standing in the room. Riley quickly jumped out of the way, landing near Saya as the sharpened rocks hovered inches from his and Saya's skin. Both of them were wearing shocked, betrayed expressions. It wasn't real, though. It was just a ruse. Still, the looks on their faces caused Kai to hesitate to inflict a lethal attack.
Whoa, Kai! What the hell?
Riley demanded as he tried to approach. Kai responded by sending a shard toward his throat, stopping just before it impaled his jugular. Kai was just waiting until he saw the slip-up, the proof of the illusion. Umbree would make a mistake soon and show his tell. Riley instantly stopped moving and went white as he saw the sharp point of stone hovering mere millimeters from his neck and Kai's cold stare boring down on him. Kai? What are you doing?
Not real,
Kai muttered to himself, reaffirming the truth.
What? You're not real!
Kai shouted back. He'd been fooled by Umbree enough. He could recognize the trick by now. He wouldn't be misled this time. Riley's face contorted in confusion.
He has been charmed,
Saya stated to Riley, suddenly understanding the situation.
His mind has been tampered with. He believes we are illusions, nothing more.
Kai glared back at the manifestation of Saya. It wasn't a belief, it was a fact, and she wasn't going to convince him otherwise.
Listen, man, I don't know what happened, but this isn't in your head. This is real. We are real.
Kai responded with a twitch of his hand as several more rock shards surrounded Riley. Riley held his hands up in surrender, adding,
"And I would prefer not to have to bleed to prove that point."
This time, Saya took a step toward Kai. In response, a portion of the rock shards that had been floating around Riley shot toward her, hovering menacingly around her skin. Unlike Riley, though, the shards did not intimidate Saya into stopping. She continued to approach Kai in small steps.
"Stay back!"
Kai hissed in warning. Saya halted her approach, holding her hands to her side in an attempt to show no malice. She caught Kai's gaze, holding it as only she was able to.
Kai,
she started softly.
Listen to me. Listen to my voice. Amongst the noise and the doubt, ask yourself if it sounds familiar, if the words you are hearing truly belong to me, or if it is another speaking. You know me well enough to trust that feeling, as I do you.
Kai hesitated for a moment. It sounded like Saya. It looked like Saya. He wanted to believe it was her, but he couldn't. Too much was at stake if he were wrong. How did you find me? If they were real, how were they able to locate him when he was in Umbree's grasp?
Riley and I became concerned when you did not return to your post. So we went to Arden's tower to see if you were all right. We found the common room in disarray. There were signs of a struggle. We didn't know what to do. We could not call out to you through your amulet, nor could we reach out to the other maesters because of the Shade's attack. So, Riley and I attempted to scry in order to find you.
Kai's vision narrowed. They were lying. They wouldn't have been able to scry for him. Umbree's blood circle took care of that. You couldn't have scried for me, Kai clarified with a cold smirk, recognizing their slip-up.
I never said we scried for you. We scried for that.
Saya pointed to the bracelet attached to Kai's left wrist, tucked slightly underneath the sleeve of his robe. The one she had given him. Kai cast a look at the wayfinding stone resting on his arm.
I told you before, didn't I? Magical stones are unique because each one possesses their own distinct aura, which means they are practically impossible to scry for unless, of course, you already know what to look for.
Saya held up her own bracelet, which still contained a small shard of the same wayfinding stone she had given to Kai. Her words echoed in his mind as Kai glanced at his bracelet.
For the next time you find yourself lost in the woods.
Kai faltered for just a moment. Was what she said true? His head was killing him. It was hard to think and harder to believe. Saya noticed Kai pause and once again began walking forward. Kai snapped back to attention, inching the stone shards closer to her in warning.
I said stay back!
So you have, but I've noticed that despite your threats, you have not harmed us. If you truly believe us to be a trick, why stop at only words? Why not strike us down?
Saya? I don't think he needs encouragement, Riley added nervously, but Saya continued unfazed.
Only two choices lie ahead for you, Kai. For this stalemate will get you nowhere. You must either trust us or kill us.
Kai was shooting glances between the two of them, trying to decide what to do. This had to be an illusion. It had to be. But Kai couldn't quell the nagging thought in the back of his mind. What if it wasn't? Was that a risk he was willing to take? Kai's hands began to shake as he tried to hold the weapons at his quarry, but try as he might, his determination was fading. After several minutes, he whispered, "Salvia." The shards instantly stopped midair and fell to the ground with a clatter. Kai lowered his arm slowly, as the fight all but left him in an instant. He was fairly certain this was a trick, a hallucination created by Umbree. But if there was even a chance that it wasn't, the possibility that he was wrong, Kai couldn't strike. He couldn't hurt his friends. He knew that Umbree would take full advantage to assume control of his mind. He would be lost now. It was all but certain. The room tilted as Kai felt pain and exhaustion firmly take hold, replacing the fight of adrenaline that had flooded him. He swayed in place, trying to regain his balance as his eyesight blurred. Despite his efforts to remain standing, his footing gave way as he watched the floor coming toward him. To his complete shock, Riley caught his arm before he hit the ground. "Easy," he replied as he helped Kai sit down. Saya shot forward, uttering, "Sylvan Taylor," while holding her hand over the injury on Kai's shoulder. Kai could feel the pain start to subside as he caught the slightest scent of lavender and lilac. It grounded him. He slowly began to understand. This wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a trick. This was real. They were real. "Forgive me," Kai stated softly, tormented with the thought he could have hurt them. "Nothing to forgive. If I had someone fucking around in my head, I'd be second-guessing reality too." Saya nodded in agreement as she gave Kai a smile of reassurance. "But now that we're all on the same page about our tangible existence, you want to tell us who the hell that bastard was?" Kai took a deep breath. It was a long story, one he wasn't certain they had time for. Saya caught his eyes. "It was Umbree, wasn't it?" She was already 2 steps ahead as usual. Kai simply nodded. "Umbree? Like your former master, Umbree? Like the guy you stabbed?" Kai nodded again. "Well, that certainly explains the hostility," Riley added, but Saya shook her head. "He took a great risk attacking you on High Council ground. Not to mention he knew precisely when to time the strike. This goes far beyond retribution against the slave that betrayed him." Kai hesitated to give her the answer she was looking for. He didn't want to get them involved any more than they already were. Umbree wouldn't hesitate to string them up as well if he got the chance. But Saya's gaze was telling him she wasn't about to let this go. "Kai, why is he after you?" Kai sighed. "He wants the Creation Stone." Saya and Riley were taken aback. "And why does Umbree think you would have that?" "Because I assisted in its removal from his manor. It was how I met Arden. He was at Umbree's manor to reclaim the stone at the request of the council, but things went wrong. Umbree was willing to kill Arden to hold on to the stone. I helped Arden escape from the manor with the stone in response." Saya and Riley were silent for some time, taking in the information. "So, I hate to point out the obvious here, but why don't we just give Umbree the damn thing? If this is all about some valuable trinket, I personally don't give 2 shits if he hawks it." "Because it is not just Umbree that wants the stone. Auron wants it too. They're working together." "What does Auron want the stone for?" Saya asked, clearly alarmed. "Nothing good. At least that's what Arden suspects, and I believe him. Arden hid the stone to keep it away from Umbree or anyone else who might be working with Auron." "And I'm guessing you know where he hid it." Kai nodded again. Riley let out a long sigh as he ran his hand through his hair. "Okay. So, we just have to keep Umbree away from the stone and you, right? Shouldn't be too hard." "I fear that task may be more complicated than you believe," Saya replied, her tone tinted with unease as she stared at something. Riley and Kai followed her gaze to the symbols she had placed on the walls. As Kai observed them, He saw tiny cracks starting to appear, almost like paper tearing very slowly.
Someone is attempting to break my cloak. My guess would be Umbree,
Saya clarified. Riley's mouth fell open.
How the hell did he find us so fast?
Kai's eyes drifted to his wounded shoulder. Umbree had stabbed him with his staff, the same one he still had on him. He has my blood, Kai clarified, knowing all too well if Umbree had that, hiding was not an option. He'll be able to track me wherever I go. Riley let loose a slew of curses as he began to pace back and forth in the cavern. I'm really hoping you got a plan B here, little sis, Riley inquired, looking to Saya for answers.
I'm thinking, Riley,
Saya replied, deep in thought, trying to run scenarios through in her head.
We could attempt to fight.
Against the Maester? Riley asked incredulously.
We could try to enlist the aid of the other acolytes.
I see that conversation going well. Hey, comrades, come, risk your life for a human you don't like and a stone you don't care about.
We can try to reach out to the other maesters again.
We already tried that, and they're a bit preoccupied at the moment. Kai knew. If Umbree caught him again, he would have the location of the stone. He had been close to breaking him as it was. Not only that, but he would kill Saya and Riley to make it happen. He had to get the stone and his friends somewhere far away from Umbree, and he had a plan for doing just that. But he doubted either one of them was going to like it. Kai reached into the pocket of his robes, pulling out Arden's flask. I have an idea, Kai stated as he slowly stood up. He threw the flask to Riley, who caught it in surprise. You both head back to Calum Vallis. In the library, in the stained glass mural of Yggdrasil, you will find a yellow stone in the sunset. Take the stone to Arden. You can use the flask to scry for him. Tell him what's happened and how to find me. Riley and Saya looked back at him incredulously.
And what? We simply leave you to your fate?
Saya asked, clearly angered by the suggestion. Yeah, no offense, man, but I doubt you can stand your ground against Umbree. You barely look like you can stand upright. I have no intention of standing my ground against him, Riley. I don't have a death wish. Umbree is stronger than me, but I'm faster than him. I can lead him on a chase around Iselia, buying you both the time you need to get to Arden.
And what makes you think he will follow?
'Cause I'm the only card he has left to play. If he can't get to the stone himself, he'll try to use me as a bargaining chip to get Arden to turn it over.
Are you certain of this?
It worked for him once before. Riley shook his head. That's assuming you can stay ahead of him. If he catches you, then I'm as good as dead, Kai stated matter-of-factly. But that will happen if I try to hide or try to fight. At least this way, I have a chance. Riley looked clearly hesitant about the idea. Well then, screw it. One of us will get the stone and the other will come with you, Riley argued.
We are neither travelers nor maesters. We could never hope to keep up.
Kai nodded in agreement, but Riley still looked unconvinced. Am I the only one that thinks this is a really bad idea?
No, but neither can I think of a better one.
Saya closed her eyes for a moment as she walked toward Kai. Once she was standing face to face with him, she opened her eyes and whispered something. She reached up and touched Kai on the side of his face. Instantly, Kai felt a warmth spread through him. His shoulder was less painful, and he felt energized. Stronger. What was that? Kai asked as Saya pulled her hand away.
A healing art. A spell to lessen the pain and give strength. Nothing more. And it will not last forever, so do not push yourself,
Saya added sternly. Kai smiled back at her. I won't. Riley sighed. He reached into the back of his belt and pulled out a dagger that he extended toward Kai. A dagger? A blade made of dragon bone. The preferred weapon of the shifter people. It can cut through almost anything. Kai grinned slightly. I appreciate the sentiment, Riley, but I don't stand much of a chance against Umbree using magic. If my survival comes down to hand-to-hand combat, something has gone horribly wrong. Then take it in case something goes horribly wrong. Kai nodded to his friend and graciously took the blade. He slid the weapon into the side of his belt. Riley walked over beside Saya, grabbing her hand in preparation to teleport. The look in Saya's eyes clearly told Kai she was afraid for him. Kai tried to offer her a smile of reassurance.
We'll see you soon. Until then, stay safe.
Yeah, You too. With one last look, Saya closed her eyes and whispered,
Demora.
Kai was now alone in the cave, turning toward the sigils on the wall. They were actively crumbling, alerting Kai to the fact that Umbree was closing in. Kai took a deep breath, preparing himself for the fight ahead. Okay, Umbree, he muttered in determination. Just you and me now. As the last sigil fell away, Kai tensed and whispered, Catch me if you can.